week, and he hadn't been to the hospital for his daily art classes and therapy, and that Kobe would be fine. And the officer outside of my dad's driveway told him the next time Kobe will kill him. They thought my son was a killer, even though they knew he was only a danger to himself. I think that's all I can really say about what happened that day. I wanted to give a little bit more to the story of what happened. I've seen the full body cams, and Kobe starts to cry and hold his head in his hands, and he gets up to run, and they tase him, and then Kobe and 4 police officers with body cams fall on the couch, and the couch tips over upside down. And when the police arrived, we're going to go back a little bit, but when the police arrived, they had searched Kobe for weapons, even though they were told he no longer had the hammer and the paring knife he'd been threatening himself with. And they were standing around the room making sure the scene was secure, and they moved Kobe to a chair, a hard chair in the middle of the room for safety. Everything they did was incompetent. They just kept making him more and more irritated. They are so under-equipped for what they do. They're trained to kill, and what they do is they kill people every day, and 54% of the people they kill are disabled. That is the exact statistic, 54%. In America, if you're the victim of a homicide by a stranger, 1 in 3 of those homicides, the killer is a police officer. 1 in 3 of all stranger homicides in this country. This isn't going to stop happening, and we need to investigate these police, and we need something other than their buddies in the district attorney's office to investigate them. So thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Jason and Amity. I know that I can't imagine anything harder than losing your child, then have to stand in front of cameras and try to explain what really happened. The fact is, we all saw a redacted video, we saw a biased report, and it's just like we've seen time and again from Mike Freeman's office. You're right, he's part of the cover-up crew, him and the BCA, and that's why we're out here today, standing with Kobe's family to demand an independent investigation and prosecution of this case. I want to call up next Sam Sanchez, Sam Martinez from Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar.
Thank you. My name is Sam. I'm an organizer with the Twin Cities Coalition for Justice for Jamar. Right now, we've been advocating for community control of the police, and what that looks like is an all-civilian, all-police accountability council that's elected without conflict of interest. We stand in support of the family's demands for an independent investigation. In fact, the Civilian Police Accountability Council would be one of those organizations that would do that. And if they felt the need to pass it along to someone else, they would be the ones doing that. And the fact of the matter is that the current city charter, or anything that's being proposed right now in the state of Minnesota, doesn't really address the crimes of police or stop them from happening, and more importantly, address important public safety and public health needs, like the situation with Kobe. That didn't have to happen at all. First of all, we have a medical system that's corrupt and left Kobe without insurance on purpose, because that's how they make more money. And then secondly, we have police who come in there who don't actually even care about supposedly what they're supposed to be caring about, protecting and serving, and then ending up killing this young man right in front of his grandparents, who actually knew the best way to take care of him more than anybody else. And so we stand in solidarity with the families and other families in the Twin Cities, and that's why we're demanding community control of the police, and we'll keep on coming back out for and supporting everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. We have a number of other community members here who want to stand with this family. Next, I want to call up Nakima Levy-Armstrong from the Racial Justice Network, and an amazing activist who organizes her own rights.
Good afternoon. I'm Nakima Levy-Armstrong, civil rights attorney and activist. I'm here to stand in solidarity with the family of Kobe Heisler. The reality is that we shouldn't have to be here outside of the government center asking Mike Freeman to simply do his damn job, which is to uphold the law and to hold police accountable when they violate the law. But time and time again, we have people whose lives are being snuffed out by law enforcement in the city of Minneapolis and in the surrounding suburbs, and there is no accountability. That is sending the message that our lives don't matter and that Kobe Heisler's life didn't matter. Kobe Heisler was only 21 years old. For all intents and purposes, he was a young man of color. I asked my son, who is 15 years old, to come and stand beside me as an illustration of a situation where someone could call 911 for whatever the reason, and police decide that as a brown boy, he is a threat.
Listen.
Whether to himself or someone else, and then to use that as a license to end his life, to treat him like he is a threat to public safety and like he has no value. It's absolutely unacceptable. So we join the calls for an independent investigation. We join the calls to have the BCA removed from this case. They should not have received additional funding at the hands of Keith Ellison, John Harrington, and the legislature. We have crooked cops investigating crooked cops through the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension. We ask specifically for an independent investigative body because of these patterns and practices of discrimination that are being levied against victims of police violence, where their murders are being seen as justified, where these statements are being issued to the press that are largely false and the police narrative, and that's what you all run with. And that clouds the view of the public, where they lack empathy for victims of police violence like Kobe Heisler. I also want to reiterate that we are calling for Mike Freeman to be removed from office immediately. He needs to resign, or the people of Hennepin County need to sign the petition to have him recalled. He is not fit to serve as the Hennepin County attorney. We are ready for a change. Kobe Heisler's family never should have had to deal with this situation because someone called 911. And like his family said, they tried to reverse the call, but that wasn't enough for bloodthirsty killer cops. They had to show up and engage in business as usual. And we're just not standing for it. We are ready for a change throughout the state of Minnesota. We are ready for a change to the post board and how they license these officers and how they renew these licenses of killer cops who have no business serving and patrolling our communities. So rest in peace to Kobe Heisler. My condolences to your family. You all do not deserve this. We are here. We stand in solidarity with you in demanding change. Thank you.
Thank you, Nikema. The next person I want to bring up has been doing some amazing work organizing and bringing together many families, mostly from across the Twin Cities. We have countless families that have been devastated by this criminal behavior by police officers that is endorsed by one county attorney after another. The person I want to ask you to listen to next is Chira Garraway Allen. Her son's father, Justin Tigan, was killed by St. Paul police almost 11 years ago, and she is still fighting for justice for Justin, and she's here to stand with Kobe's family today.
The state of Minnesota is constantly showing our families that our lives don't matter. It is consistently Mike Freeman has constantly showed us that the only human beings that deserve justice is Caucasian people. Because Mike Freeman has only prosecuted one officer, which is Officer Noor, who killed a Caucasian woman. But time and time again, for our cases, people are let off.
Listen.
Justine Damon family got paid off for 12 of our families.
Listen.
We see clearly. They're doing it in our faces. We see clearly what is going on here. Our families are standing together. We're fighting in solidarity, and we're tired, and they're going to give us the justice that we deserve. Mike Freeman needs to step down, but he's not the only one. Drew Evans, the head of the BCA, for the last 20 years that he's been in his position, all of these murders have occurred. But yet the BCA is supposed to be the people that are investigating these murders. Drew Evans is in my son's father's reports. Anybody that is in those reports are a part of the cover-up. So I'm quite sure if they're a part of my son's father's cover-up, they're a part of a whole bunch of more hundreds of families cover-up. We need the people in the leadership roles and the political seats to do the right thing by our families here in the state of Minnesota. You guys are worried about your buildings being on fire when we can never get back what you guys have taken from our families. These people are targeting, literally targeting our loved ones. And you guys are allowing them to walk. One by one by one by one, you're allowing them to walk here in the state of Minnesota. We should be leading. We should be leading because all over the world, we're being watched because of what happened to George Floyd. Some of the 3 main high-profile cases in the last few years have come from the state of Minnesota. Jamar Clark, Philando Castile, George Floyd. High-profile cases. That should tell us something. It's a problem here in the state of Minnesota, all over the United States, but it's a problem in Minnesota. So we are asking for accountability. We're not asking for anything major. We're doing what you would do if this was your loved one. Tim Waltz and the rest of y'all. Keith Ellison, whoever else. If this was your child, if this was your son, we're asking for accountability like you would ask for if this was your child. And we are tired. And we will not stand for accountability not being put forth any longer. Thank you.
Thank you to Shira, and some of the family members that came up with her are the brother of Paul Castaway and the mother of Hardell Sherrill, 2 other people whose lives have been stolen by criminal police in our state. The fact is, it's a very long list, and that's why there's so many people out here to support Kobe's family today, because we know the truth. We know that Mike Freeman wouldn't know the truth if it hit him in the face.
Listen.
With that, I want to ask our next speaker to come up, an important organizer who's been working with us in the movement against police crimes and for real accountability, Jelani Hussein from the Council on American Islamic Relations in Minnesota.
I want to start off by saying that there are 400 plus families since 1980 that have not received justice. Since 2000. And that is the unfortunate reality of what's happening here in Minnesota. Having a mental crisis should not warrant your death sentence. But the reality is Kobe Heisler and their family today are victims of a system that continues to protect itself. A system that is based on the same people. I want you to understand this. When an officer commits a crime, that same officer has to be prosecuted by the prosecutor that relies on the evidence of that police officer. So when we ask for independent investigations, we are removing the clear bias that is there, the conflict of interest that is clearly established through the behavior of the relationship between the prosecutor and the police departments. In fact, most of the prosecutors across this country have been lobbied in for by the police departments. And so there has been collusion in this justice system where police officers, when they commit crimes, such as killing Kobe Heisler, they are above the law, regretfully. This is the reality we live in. And what we're asking for, Minnesotans, is to join us in demanding for justice, in demanding for accountability, in demanding for transparency. Because the reality is, as Tashir was mentioning, when people feel and see the clear injustice, like we saw with what happened to Justine Diamond, guess what? We prosecuted Mohamed Noor, and now he's in prison. But why is it that the other people of color, who overwhelmingly are the majority of those who are killed by police, never see the light of justice? And why is it that when a white woman is killed, she gets $20 million in settlement, and not even the closest person is receiving even $1 million? Why is that? Because we have a system in this country that only values white people. That's why we have said over and over again, Black Lives Matter. And today, again, another evidence. If you have seen what happened to George Floyd, and maybe that was your awakening, maybe that was the first time you realized something is wrong, I want you to know there are families like Kobe Heisler who have not got justice. Right. And Mike Freeman is part of a system that continues to deny people justice. People justice. If a cop commits a crime, do not have any hope that Mike Freeman will bring forth charges. We saw in this case with George Floyd, he failed to bring charges. The matter had to be taken out of his hands because the city was burning. Why does the city have to burn for independent prosecution to come forward in the state? It just doesn't make any sense. So we're asking for independent investigation. The law of the state of Minnesota allows for that. His investigation does not matter. The governor now is on the clock. The governor should appoint an independent investigator to this case so that there could be justice for this family, because what happened to Kobe Heisler should have never happened to Kobe or anyone else. A mental health crisis should not lead to someone dying. But in Minnesota, it continues to happen over and over and over. And you're right. We are a state that continues to kill, and the majority of the people are silent. So if you're at home today and watching, and you're tired of this happening, recall Mike Freeman. Let's do that. And secondly, call the governor and tell him to appoint an independent investigator to this case. Thank you.
Thank you. Jelani was our last speaker. Again, we're here to stand with Kobe's family. We do not accept Mike Freeman's decision. We are demanding an independent prosecutor come and bring charges against Kobe Heisler's killers. With that, I don't know if you have any questions for any of the folks that spoke. Again, the family is not available for questions, but other speakers can be.
Yeah, you said you watched some of the footage. Was there anything in there that showed that the police were not being negligent?
It showed the police were not being negligent.
Yeah, like, well, was there anything in there that showed justification that Mike Freeman is saying?
It looks like Michelle wants to speak to that.
As I said before, I had the privilege of viewing the body camera footage some weeks ago before this report was released. And I can tell you that with absolute certainty, there was no justification for shooting Kobe. When he became distraught, he got up from his chair and he ran toward his bedroom. And that was when they opened fire on him. And they did, you know, they lie in this report and they say that he ran at a cop, and that's an absolute falsity. That is an absolute lie. And the body camera footage shows that that's a lie. He did not run at that officer. He ran away from that officer.
Was there indeed a knife in his hand when he was running?
I could not see that in the video. I did not see a knife in his hand in the video. The police officers talk about it, but I did not see it. And in fact, the knife that he had prior to that was in his grandmother's possession, and then she gave in a bag, and she gave the knife and the hammer to the police, and they had it in their possession at the time that he jumped up from the chair and ran away.
The question was did he have a knife? You heard the answer.
Also, I would like to know how could we, what procedures do we need to take to get rid of Mike Freeman or to have him recalled to step down?
There's a group here that I think might be able to answer that. I don't know if one of their representatives is here, but there is an effort to recall Mike Freeman. It's long past due. I hope people will sign on to it. Mike Freeman has got to go. His long history of racism, both in filling the jails with black and brown bodies and in failing to seek justice for those individuals who are harmed by police, it speaks for itself, frankly. People need to sign that petition, and he needs to be recalled. Right. There's a website, recallfreeman.org. The signatures have to be collected in person, and they post their location, so people should go and find them and sign that petition. Mike Freeman's got to go. He is long past the time that he should have been in office committing the harms that he's committed against our community. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, I just want to thank everyone for coming here. And let's just, because this is what we do. What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. For who? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. For who? What do we want? Justice. When do we want it? Now. For who? For who? For who? And we won't stop till we get it. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, what you heard was just a press conference. We're going to try to speak to some folks. I'll do a wrap up in a little bit. Give me a second. Talk about that. What's up, man? How you doing? Okay. I know you're probably going to talk to I'll write you. Yeah, hey, send them off to you. Thank you. Hey, Michelle. Would you be down for a quick interview?
Yeah, I can do it.
Okay, sweet.
By the way.
Yeah. You can hold this if you want, otherwise I can hold it. Can you talk about just like what happened with this case? So August 31st, the police come, it was a mental crisis, and then they end up killing Kobe. Kobe, who already had some other issues, like psychiatric issues going on. Yeah. But then like the family said he's fine and called him off. Can you just describe what happened?
Sure. On that particular day, Kobe was having a bad day, and initially his grandparents called the police because he was acting up a little bit, but then the police took a little while, and by the time they started to come, he had calmed way down. And so they called back and they told the police not to come. The police came anyway. And when they came, you can actually see in the body camera footage the way that they're like going to the back door and the front door and acting like this is some kind of hostage situation or something. They way overreacted to what was going on. And then they came in the house, and the first thing they did is they demanded he stand up, and they searched him, for any weapons, and he had no weapons on him. That was clear. And then they had him sit in a different chair. And he sat in that chair, and he had, again, no weapons on him. And, the police were not doing a good job of de-escalating. They kept talking about, you got to go to the hospital and this and that and the other thing. And it was agitating him. So at a point, he's crying. He goes, I don't want to go. I don't want to go. It's a 3-day weekend. I don't want to go. And then next thing you know, he jumps up and he runs away. He is running away from the police. And that's when they open fire on him. It is the most sickening thing. I don't want to get into too much more detail because there's going to be a legal case involved here. But that is the essence of what happened. And I do not believe that is in any way justifiable.
Can you talk about the legal case? What their family just went through this. And now it's almost a year over. Now they get these no charges. The officers are justified. the only recourse really is civil lawsuits and legal recourse in that realm. Can you just talk about that real quick?
Yes, unfortunately, that is the only legal recourse. And they are working with an attorney. I'd like to not say the name right now. I'm working with that attorney as well. We're interviewing and reviewing all of the data. Now that all of the material from the BCA has finally been released, even though some of it's redacted, we're going to be able to get the unredacted versions and do a real investigation, what should have happened. And, you know, that at that point, then a lawsuit will almost certainly be mounted for this family. And it's unfortunate because what should happen is that officers that kill people without good justification need to get in prison. They need to be prosecuted. And instead, we rely on a system of civil suits. And civil suits, you know, are not a slam dunk by any means. This is the Eighth Circuit, the most conservative circuit for police cases, and roughly 85% of civil cases against police get thrown out. So most people don't realize that. This is not by no means a slam dunk. You know, this is a very hard situation. And so we're going to be working hard to ensure that this family gets some measure of justice. But
can you just talk about Communities United Against Police Brutality, just some of the work you all have been doing real quick?
Absolutely. Communities United Against Police Brutality is a 20-year-old organization here in the Twin Cities that is all volunteers. We have no paid staff. We provide advocacy for people dealing with the effects of police brutality, including that we investigate these cases anew. You know, we'll actually go out and interview witnesses, measure the scene, do all kinds of different assessment of the case, and that allows a lot of these families to actually get a lawyer and get a lawsuit. We've done that in a number of cases. We also, you know, have a 24-hour hotline. We go to court with people, line people up with lawyers. We do a lot of work to change the underlying causes of police brutality, like legislative work, the working on ordinances and policies and all of that kind of stuff. And then the third thing we do is we educate the community around knowing their rights when dealing with police and how to not have interactions with the police if they can avoid it, or have safer interactions if they have to have an interaction.
Thank you. Anything else you want to say in this case or anything in general?
Well, you know, this again illustrates, this case is a perfect illustration of why the legislature is so wrong-headed. You know, in the last legislative session, they passed a bill. They called it sweeping, major change. It was nothing of the sort. All they did was do a couple of little minor tweaks on the law, and they gave a big pile of money to the BCA to continue to do these whitewash investigations. And that's wrong. What we really need is an independent agency, separate of all law enforcement, to do independent investigations and make prosecutory decisions. None of these cops that work with other cops and these crooked agencies shouldn't have any role whatsoever in evaluating these cases or determining about prosecutions. They just need to be out of it because they're not unbiased. They cannot be unbiased. And by definition, they consistently cover for the cops.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate your time.
No,
appreciate the knowledge on the 8th District, too. I don't know anything about that.
Oh, it's horrible.
I got to talk to you about that later.
Yeah, it's
Thank you,
horrible.
Michelle. You got a second? All right. Well, we're going to speak to Gabriel, who's going to also talk about another person who recently passed last year, 2 years ago, Billy Hughes, it's the day of Angelversary for Billy Hughes today, huh? You want to talk about it? Just his case and also the action that's happening tonight?
Yes. Billy Hughes was killed 2 years ago today. Today's his Angelversary. So we plan on doing a protest march with his sister leading it. So our family, Justice for Paul Castaway family, is in support and in solidarity. And our Native Lives Matter group is also in solidarity with the family of Billy Hughes. So it was wrong what happened with Billy. I remember seeing the video when it came out. And I remember us being there when it first happened. We were trying to figure out, you know, what happened, if it was the police that killed somebody or somebody else killed somebody. But it all came down to it was the St. Paul police who killed Billy Hughes. The video came out and you can see Billy coming out the front door and raised his hands. You know, he raised his hands to the ceiling, and that's what I saw. Him raise his hands, and the cops, I think they shot like 9 times, and about half of the bullets entered him. And we were on the scene after BCA left, and we saw the bullet holes that went through the side of the door into the next house. where there were kids, where there was a family and kids. So the police don't have any kind of heart or any kind of compassion towards these killings that they are committing. So we are here today, and we are going to be protesting for Billy Hughes on his second anniversary in St. Paul, 905 St. Anthony Avenue, St. Paul, and that's where we will be.
What time?
6 o'clock. So we got to be heading over there now. All right, thank you. Thank
Anything
you.
else you'd want to say?
Just
Kobe's case that just happened.
Yeah, Kobe's
You're
case.
You've been standing with the family for a long time.
Yeah, well, Kobe's case is the police are the DA is not charging the police for killing Kobe Heisler when they should be charged with murder because he was autistic. So that doesn't give the police to kill somebody who's being autistic, who has autism. Autism is not a crime, just like having a mental health crisis is not a crime either. Like my brother's case, my brother was going through a schizophrenic episode, and Kobe Heisler was, he was autistic. So for the police not to be held accountable in this, it's heartbreaking for the family. So we stand with the family, and we still demand justice with the family, and to reopen the case, reopen all the cases here in Minnesota. So, yeah, we're here in solidarity. Thank you.
Appreciate it. That was Gabe. Paul Castaway's brother was killed in Denver by Denver police. He was talking about an action for Billy Hughes tonight at 6 p.m. And that action is going to be in protest and demanding justice for Billy, and also celebrating his life. Again, Billy Hughes was killed 2 years ago today in St. Paul, and he was his officers got let off. So today, though, we had Kobe Heisler's father's right here. He's now having to deal with the reality of what Mike Freeman just brought. Here's Kobe Heisler's mother, and she's also having to deal with the reality that Mike Freeman brought. And the reality that Mike Freeman brought was that no charges will be charged against the police officers who killed Kobe Heisler. There's his stepdad, and his stepmother's over here somewhere too. Kobe Heisler was autistic, 21 years old, gay, African American, and going through a mental health crisis. There was a couple times where Kobe went through these crises. Some of the police officers evidently knew him before they killed him. They had dealt with him before. There's some discrepancies in their reports from what the videos show, according to the family and supporters and defenders of the family. And so we'll try to get to the bottom of bringing you all the videos and the body cams and the police report in the next few days. We'll bring you an interview of Kobe Heisler's mother. We spoke to her during Hardell Chervell action with Delshia Perry, who's right here. She's ducking her head in on the other direction. She's right here bending down. Delshia Perry, her son, Hardell Cheryl, died in Beltrami County Jail. They had a End Men Correctional Care action 2 weeks ago up in Sartell, Minnesota. We spoke to Kobe Heisler's mom, Amity Dimmick, at that action, pretty at length about her son's case and about what she missed about her son and what kind of person her son was. And so, again, Kobe Heisler, 21 years old, her autistic son is dead from the police. The police have now been ruled justified. This is City Hall in Minneapolis, and this is the Hennepin County Government Center. This press conference was held here in front of the Hennepin County Government Center because Mike Freeman's office is like on the 21st floor, I think. 20-something, or somewhere up there. Used to be anyway. And that's why they had it out here. People are calling for the recall of Mike Freeman. People are also asking who would run besides Mike Freeman. People are talking about voting, and voting will change everything. Well, then who's going to run for these seats that people are going to be supposedly voting for to change everything. So again, this is a situation here in Minneapolis, just another one of these killings ruled justified. So thank you all for tuning in. This is Nico from Unicorn Riot. Thank you, Jen, for running the back end. We're going to take the stream down. In the meantime, check out our coverage, unicornriot.ninja. Check out, continue to follow us. We'll cut up a little bit more video from this. We'll try to bring you all some more of the investigatory documents. And so check out our website, unicornriot.ninja. Check us out on Instagram, unicorn.riot. Check us out on Twitter, UR_ninja, Facebook, YouTube, and Vimeo. If you are financially privileged, we are only able to do this because of you. If you have the ability and the want and you like our coverage, consider joining our micro-monthly donor club, or just giving us a one-time donation. We can accept checks and a variety of forms of donations. Go to unicornriot.ninja/donate for one of the ways, for a few of the ways to get us some support. Otherwise, share our stuff and talk about what we talk about or what we covered. So thank you again. We'll take the stream down. Thank you. Peace, peace. Have a good day.